Sharma, and this is a broadcast for the XAT 2020, as you know. And XAT is an exam which is part of your MBA prep calendar, and perhaps the second most important exam after the CAT. So when you prepare for your year-long processes for developing your thinking ability and your attempt and the challenge of cracking in a B school, that is one of your most coveted spots in the calendar. Simply because of the fact that if you look at the ZAD exam, it's one of the most prestigious exams, principally because of two reasons. One is, of course, it's a high quality exam, but also because of the fact that it's what I call as a second bite at the cherry. That gives you a second bite of the cherry, the same cherry, getting to a top B school if you have not done well at the CAT, or even if you have done well at the CAT, doing well at the ZAT kind of gives you an option of getting to the top B school. Because I mean, if you frankly look at it, you look at IIM ABC graduates, people who passed out 15, 20 years ago, and you compare them with XLRA graduates who passed out around the same time, you will see that there is a 1:1 match in terms of career paths, career growth, and opportunities, etc. In that sense, for a lot of people, that becomes the salvaging point of the year, in the sense that even if you're not done well at the CAT, you can still harbor dreams to actually get into XLRI and have the same kind of job offers and same kind of placements, etc. in the same year, during the very same year, not the next year, not the year after next, but during the very same year. So, as you know, this is about this session is a session on FAQs for ZAT prep. What are the frequently asked questions? And I was trying to reflect in my mind. Okay, normally, what are the questions people ask me about ZAT? Now, typically, prep wise, what most people do is till October, November, they have a single line of prep that is focusing on CAT, and along with CAT, they are also preparing themselves for the ZAT parallelly. But once November is ending and CAT is over, the focus of the last month of prep shifts completely to ZAT, and hence one of the key FAQs that I keep getting is what are the specific things I need to do as a student in the last month, right? So I have this pre-prepared set of questions which I have seen as FAQs in various exams or various times that I have trained people for the ZAT. People have been asking me these questions, and the first one is on your screen right now. What score is required to get a good percentile in ZAT or an XLRA call? So, having said that, clearly one thing you need to understand is, first of all, before we look at the score, let's focus on the pattern. I have not put pattern. I mean, a lot of people also do ask us about patterns of the exam, but I often, I have not put that as a part of the FAQ, simply because of the fact that I would expect that this video and this lesson will be accessed by people who are slightly ahead on their solving or on their prep cycle, and they would not be pattern oriented right now. At least they would know the pattern. So as you know, essentially the ZAT would break itself into four sections. The sections are verbal and logical ability, and logical, or it's also called as verbal ability and logical reasoning. Although they don't put logical reasoning here in the conventional sense, you will mostly find this very similar to the VARC section of the ZAT of the CAT. You'll find this very similar to the VARC section of the CAT. You will then move on to the one section that is very distinctive in the XAT, which is not there in other exams, the decision making section. And the third section that you have is quantitative aptitude. And you have a fourth section called general awareness or general knowledge based section, which includes traditional, static, as well as current affairs based GK. So four sections, and typically what is expected is 26 questions coming in the VA section, verbal section, the English section. We can loosely call this the English section. By the way, this third section is quantitative aptitude and data interpretation. Most of it mimics the QA of the CAT, but you need to understand that DI is not a separate section in that. DI, you will get some sprinkling of DI in the quant section itself. The decision making itself is expected to be 21 questions. That's what it's been for the last couple of years. And quant aptitude is 27 questions, and DI that includes QA as well as DI. And general awareness, of course, will be a total of 25 questions. So 99 questions across four sections is what is expected. But one important aspect of strategizing for the XAT and trying to answer this question about what score is required to get a good percentile in XAT is that the scoring will only be on these three sections. The general awareness section is considered only at the last stage of selection. That once you reach a point where you're getting through the whole process, and for the final selection only it's considered. Your interview calls, etc., will happen only on this. So the pattern is such that you have 165 minutes to solve these three sections and 15 minutes to solve the GK section. And within the first three sections, there is no time limits. So that's an important part of the strategy of solving, which we'll come to as we move on. So 165 minutes, 74 marks. And if you look at past trends, one again a major difference pattern wise in XAT is that there are always 5 options in the XAT paper. There are 5 options in the XAT paper. So there will always be 5 options, and naturally what that does is it reduces the negative to 0.25 per wrong answer. But the expected score, if you're just marking, does not change, because in CAT it's plus 1 minus 0.33. That means 3:1 ratio. It's actually plus 3 minus 1, but it can be visualized as plus 1 minus 0.33. And in CAT, if there are 4 options and you randomly mark 4 questions, you would expect 1 will go right and 3 will go wrong. So your net score expected will be 0, plus 1 minus 0, or plus 3 and minus 3. In XAT, if you randomly mark 5 questions, you will expect 1 to go right and 4 would go wrong. So naturally, your expected score will be 0 in 5 questions. So although on the surface it seems that minus 0.25 is a lower negative marking than the 1/3 negative in CAT, but because the fifth option, that advantage is neutralized. So you can't blindly guess in this XAT. Blind guess is going to land you in trouble because it's not going to give you anything extra. But one more thing about the pattern you should understand, and I have put it up as an FAQ here, and this is the third one. What to do about negative marking? What is the best approach to deal with negative marking for not answering questions? So this is part of the pattern. You have to understand that there is in the whole paper of 74 questions, you're allowed to leave 8 questions. Till 8 questions leaving, that means if you solve 66 and you leave 8 questions, then these 8 questions are not penalized. You have 0 penalty on this. But the moment you leave a 9th question, on the 9th question leaving, you have a minus 0.10. And after the 8th question, 9, 10, 11, every question that you leave beyond 8 questions, the moment you cross 8 questions left, every question that you leave will have a minus zero point 0.1. So this changes the way you mark answers very drastically in the XAT. Because what happens is that the differential between getting a question wrong and getting it not answered, if you mark an answer and you get a question wrong, you get minus 0.25. You mark an answer, you get it right, you get plus 1. You mark an answer and you don't mark an answer because you're not sure of an answer, you get a minus zero point 0.1. In CAT, leaving a question versus marking it wrong versus getting it right is neutral. So if you mark, you are down to 2-3 options, you mark, you're not going to get too much benefits out of marking while guessing, especially if you're down to 2 options. In CAT, it's a 50-50 call, right? So, and you get it right, you get plus 1, you got it wrong, you get plus 3, you get it wrong, you get minus 1. So if you're in 2 options, you mark both 2 questions. One goes right, one goes wrong. You get plus 2 net score. But in XAT, if you are between 2 options, if you are between 2 options in 2 questions, plus 2, effectively on a plus 1 minus 0.33 grade, scale, you're effectively only getting 0.66 marks for 2 questions. Your score is growing up by 0.66 if you had left versus if you had left the questions. So you reached 2 questions, you had 2 options in both these questions that you were considering. You left the questions, your score will be here. You marked both answers, your expected score will go up by 0.66. Now see what happens in that. You got to 2 questions where you were between 2 options. If you left both these questions, your score will drop by minus 0.2. If you mark both these questions, one will be expected to be right and one will go wrong. So your growth will be 0.75 expected score. So you can see the jump in the score is around 0.95 here. The jump in your score is around 0.95, whereas in CAT the jump is only 0.66. So it's a no-brainer that in the XAT, you will, if you are between 2 options, you will be marking one of them. That's very clear. And in fact, even at 3 options, you can mark one of them. If you do 10 such questions, in which you are between 2 options, 5 will go right, 5 will go wrong. Going wrong will effectively drop your negative by only 0.15 more, and the 5 rights will give you plus 5. So net effect on your score is going to be plus 5 minus 0.75. So your net effect is going to be plus 4.25, and that's huge in the context that in the XAT you need to get a score of only around 30, 35. 35 plus, you are in serious business to get through. 35 plus, the closer you get to 35 plus, if you can start hitting the 40 range, you are almost sure of a call. 30, 32, you are on the borderline. Some years you'll get a call on 32, 33, some years you'll not. And hence the target has to be the 35 to 40 range. Because in that case, the closer you are towards 40 rather than 35, your outcome is almost guaranteed. So your target will have to be to get to your target will have to be to get to as close to 40 as possible. And hi Ashita, welcome to the session. And anybody else, you can also shoot questions along with what I'm talking about here. So then what is the strategy then? ये तो नेगेटिव मार्किंग का पॉइंट हो गया. सो गुड स्कोर, गुड परसेंटाइल, XLRA कॉल 30-35 के रेंज में मिल सकता है, 35 to 40 के रेंज में डेफिनेटली मिलेगा. सेक्शनल क्वालिफाइंग्स हैं तीनों सेक्शन में. 8 to 10 स्कोर पे सेक्शनल क्वालिफाई हो जाएगा. तो मेरे हिसाब से द स्ट्रैटेजी शुड बी 10-10-10 and combined on the 3 sections plus 10. This should be what you target when you start the paper. 10-10-10 plus 10. So 10 marks in verbal, 10 marks in decision making, 10 marks in QADI, and then you try to score, see where you can get the extra 10. Are you going to get extra 10 with plus 5 plus 5? Or are you going to do a plus 3 plus 3 plus 3? Or you're really good at one section, so you want a plus 7 here and a plus 3 here, so you're scoring, looking at scoring 17 in quants and 13 in decision making. This is something which you'll have to take a call on. What works for you best, right? So this question is answered. Now, as I said, there's no time limits. Hi. Yes, Priya, as I said, between two options. If you are between two options, marking it is better than leaving it. The reason is simple. मतलब कुछ भी करो, 8 क्वेश्चन तो तुम्हारे छूटने ही वाले. You're going to leave 8 questions at any cost. 8 questions तो तुम्हारे छूटे गए. Hi भूपेंद्र, वेलकम टू द सेशन. तो उसके बाद जब तुम किसी क्वेश्चन के कॉल पे आ जाते हो कि ये लेना है कि वो लेना है, दो ऑप्शन में आ जाते हो, तो उसको अगर नॉन अटेम्प्टेड रखोगे तो इफेक्टिवली वो -0.1 दे ही रहा है तुमको. तो रिस्क लेके 1 मार्क कर दो, इट कैन गो टू +1 और -0.25. The downside is only 1.15, the upside is 1.1. You don't mark a question, the downside is 0.15. The upside is will take you all the way to +1, so upside is 1.1. If you're between two options, 50-50, even 40-60, if you're between two options, marking will give you an upside of +1.1. So you should mark. Hi Shubham, welcome to the session. Right, so what is the time division? Time division has to be on the principle in exams, all exams. In general, I talked about this in IFT also. In general, all exams where the sections are not divided, time division has to be proportional to number of marks, not number of questions, number of marks. So उस एंगल से देखोगे तो 26 marks verbal में है, 21 decision making में है, and 27 quants में है. 74 marks का paper you're solving in 165 minutes. So सीधा सीधा हिसाब लगाओगे तो 2.22 minutes per question approximately. तो 58 minutes for verbal, 47 minutes for decision making, and 60 minutes approximately for the QADI. Right? This should be the marking time. Now you can vary this a little bit depending on your strategy. So if you have a strategy that I want to score 17 here, 10 here, and 13 here to get to 40, this strategy will be taken by people who are good at quants and DI. So you might want to pull off 6 minutes from here and add 6 minutes there. Right? You can do that to get closer to 40, because the 6 minutes extra here, if your verbal is not so good, the 6 minutes extra spent here is not going to give you as many marks as the 6 minutes extra spent here. But at the same time, you cannot take out 20 minutes from here, because then तो section qualifying ही नहीं होगा. तो तुम्हारा ऑब्जेक्टिव फिर ये हो जाना चाहिए कि अगर ये टारगेट्स है तो जिस सेक्शन में तुमको क्वालिफाई करना है वो मिनिमम टाइम में क्वालिफिकेशन गारंटी कर लो और बाकी पूरा टाइम अपने स्ट्रेंथ पे प्ले करो. Right? The whole of the remaining time play to your strengths. Decision making में typically +3.5 from the base value of 10 for qualifying section is very easy to do, because decision making will see questions are I don't have time in the session to do questions, and this session is not supposed to be on questions. I'll be taking a session on questions tomorrow, day after, with you guys. Of the quants and the data interpretation and the reasoning and the verbal as well as decision making in the on the YouTube channel here. But you will see that decision making typically. So that brings me to the next FAQ. How to prepare for the decision making section. That's a very frequently biggest question asked every time whenever I talk about that. And what should be my solving strategy in the DM section. So DM section में क्या होता है? DM, what is DM first? Decision making is they give you cases. In decision making, what they do is they give you caselets. The way the caselet look is very similar to a critical reasoning or an RC question, but it's not an RC question because these caselets or the questions and answers have to be seen from a decision point of view. They have to be visualized from a decision viewpoint, not from a perspective की of reading comprehension. Reading comprehension perspective क्या होता है? तुमको एक पैसेज दिया हुआ है, तुमको उसमें से आंसर फाइंड करना होता है. It's basically finding an answer or perceiving an answer. If it's not given directly, you're supposed to perceive. Caselets of decision making में difference क्या हो जाता है? You are seeing the caselet from the decision viewpoint means you are basically looking at the objective as the primacy of the situation. Objective as the primacy of the situation. So the objective becomes the most important this thing. Every decision, whenever you take a decision, there's always an objective to a decision, which is not there in a reading comprehension question. So identifying the problem situation in the question, and identifying the objective of your decision viewpoint. With what objective are you taking a decision? So that will make a big difference to your final outcomes or to the answers. So ये decision perspective होता है, इसके बारे में तुमको देखना पड़ेगा. And the best way, don't look for any practice material. You don't need it. I think if you do, how do you prepare for this? You pick up the XAT original papers. You'll be able to find the XAT original papers on the web for the last 10-12 years. So XAT original papers जितना पुराना जा सकते हो, ये वीडियो रहेगा यूट्यूब पे शुभम, इट विल बी अवेलेबल. सो जितना पुराना जा सकते हो XAT original जाओ, go as far back as you can. Minimum 2009 तो जाना ही है, 9 to 19. If you can go back a little bit earlier, go there. You will get on an average 20 to 30 questions per year on decision making. So 10-12 years का अगर decision making देख लेते हो तो you are basically looking at 250 to 300 questions. और decision making में होता क्या है कि there are two kinds of questions. One is logical decision making situations, and they are very contemporary. जैसे for example, I was just taking a plus class with my Unacademy students, and in that I was showing them that there was this question about a sport called racket, which was a very popular sport in a country, and the sports minister was in a fix because the top superstars of the racket and the running body, the body running the racket game in the country, was not allowing drug testing of its top players, citing security issues. Now, if you go to real life, you will realize that almost something very similar happened in with respect to the sports ministry of the government of India and the BCCI last year with respect to the WADA, the drug control agency, the International Sports Drug Control Agency, where they wanted to test the top Indian players, and BCCI was not allowing that to happen, and the top players were also resisting us on the basis of security issues. So these very contemporary cases will happen. So things which are happening around you, they'll build a case around it and put your decision framework there. So the logical decision making is one part of it. The other part of sometimes you also get quantitative decision making cases. And a typical case will have between 2 to 4 questions. Sometimes there's only one question on a case also. But a typical case, you read a case, you'll have 2 to 4 questions. So you'll typically have between 7 to 8 cases for 21 questions in the exam. And what happens is if you look at the 250 odd questions that you have had over the last 10-12 years, you will see that a lot of these logical question on decision making are straight read and mark kind of questions. No solving required, what is to be done is very obvious in that question. Only thing is you need the decision making perspective, and that's why I said preparation wise you have to look at the last 10 years, 10, 12 years. If you can go further back, if you can go to 500 questions on decision making, including the last year's 2009 के पहले के papers भी तो करो, because the best source of questions is the original decision making of the questions was that. क्वांटिटी तो और इसमें क्या होता है, 70% ऑफ द क्वेश्चंस, अगर अगर 16-17 क्वेश्चंस लॉजिकल वाले हैं तो उसमें 70%, दैट मीन्स 10 to 12 क्वेश्चंस विल बी एब्सोल्युटली क्रिस्टल क्लियर व्हाट इज द राइट आंसर. They'll be absolutely crystal clear. You can do my session tomorrow, day after, where I'll show you questions on decision making on YouTube, where we'll be looking at the perspective of why only one answer shines out, and why anything else is going to be illogical if you read it if you read it correctly. So 10-12 questions. So the solving strategy is very clear. These 10-12 questions which are where there's no ambiguity, you should look at those. The remaining 4-5 questions on logical decision making जो आते हैं, अगर 17 क्वेश्चन लॉजिकल आ गए और 4 क्वेश्चन क्वांटिटेटिव आ गया तो क्वांटिटेटिव डिसीजन मेकिंग कभी कभी लेंदी होता है, तो उससे थोड़ा सा बच के रहना. अगर लेंदी नहीं है तो सॉल्व कर लेना, अगर लेंदी है तो यू माइट वांट टू पुट ऑल योर एग्स इन दिस बास्केट. एंड 17-18 is good attempts, or 21 in around, as I said, 46 minutes for decision making, right? और जो क्रिस्टल क्लियर उसको मार्क करते जाओ, जहाँ पे दो ऑप्शंस के बीच में हो मार्क करते जाओ. और दो ऑप्शन वर्स्ट केस मतलब मैक्सिमम कंफ्यूजन दो ऑप्शन में ही रहेगा, उससे ज़्यादा कंफ्यूजन रहता नहीं है, right? Very briefly, verbal section FAQ. Verbal is very very similar to CAT, except the fact that you also have fill in the blanks, and the division is around 12 questions on reading comprehension and around 14 questions on verbal ability. And these verbal ability questions are a mix of fill in the blanks and vocab based questions, and all kinds of questions that you don't see in the CAT. CAT is only 3 question types, so you'll have to make sure that you practice all these question types again the last 10-12 years of the XAT papers, and take each of those papers as a mock test rather than going for mock test series, etc. So try to make sure that you have practiced all this. And in the RC sometimes they have a tendency to give a poem, so maybe you can do some poetry reading leading up to the exam. So maybe you do one poetry every alternate day, and look at the classic poetries, etc., classic authors of poetry, etc., like and just make sure that you do a little bit of poetry reading. You can Google good quality poetry and just do it, because poetry में क्या होता है, comprehension में क्या होता है, what is written is what is there in front of you. Poetry always has an implied meaning. So if I say black lake in comprehension, it means the lake which is black. But if I say black lake in poetry, it might have a metaphorical meaning to it. So metaphorical meaning के लिए you have to get used to it. ठीक है? So that's one part of it. Apart from that, everything else will, मतलब the reading comprehension, etc., apart from the 5 option thing, will seem just like the CAT. And the last question about quant section, what do you do for the QA section? How do you prepare for the QA section? Well, mostly it is blocks 1, which is number systems, progressions, 2, 3, the arithmetic area, 4, geometry, mensuration, coordinate geometry. Coordinate geometry also becomes important in XAT. And block 5, which is algebra, and algebraic transformations, etc., become really critical in the XAT. So you need to understand that. And from block 6, specifically probability and set theory. So all the chapters that were important for CAT are important here, except etc. Extra coordinate geometry and probability are 2 chapters which are more important in the XAT than they were in the CAT. So you need to make sure that you study that. Solving strategy QA section, as I said, 27 questions. You'll be taking around 60 minutes, and this 60 minutes you can divide approximately the breakdown of the 27 questions according to last couple of years. 20-21 questions on quantitative aptitude, and 6 questions on on data interpretation. So what you can do is you can spend around 13-14 minutes on the two sets of DI, and DI is mostly traditional and calculative. लॉजिकल होगा भी तो थोड़ा सा रहेगा, जैसे कैट 2003-4-5 में आता था. तो DI प्रेप करना है जैट के लिए, तो जैट पास पेपर्स, CAT pass papers, specifically between 99 to 2008 type of papers, if you do, you will get a good flavor of the kind of DIs that asks. और ये 13-14 मिनट में ये 6 क्वेश्चन में, बिकॉज लॉजिकल एम्बिग्विटी कम रहता है, तो you have more control of these questions than you will have in the CAT. So you can look at that, and then the remaining 46 minutes, 46-47 minutes, look at the QA section. As I said, your basic target is 10. So even if you score, if you get these two sets correct, you're already at six marks. Then you can say, okay, out of 21 questions, or basically, kitna kar paoge? Will you be able to do 50% of these questions or less, or more? Depends on what was your experience in the CAT. In CAT, if you are easily solving 50% of the questions, so that may be more or less the level is same, except the emphasis changes. So that maybe 50% questions will be enough. So for quants strategy or prep strategy wise, just revise everything you have done till now. CAT का जितना prep किए थे, जितने questions किए थे, उसके बाद एक बार फिर से solve कर जाओ. Because at least in the arithmetic and the number systems part, you'll find almost, and even geometry part, you'll find almost ditto. Geometry mensuration part also, you'll find almost ditto. You might be picking solving a question in ZAT, and you might be feeling that you're solving a CAT question. Or you pick up a ZAT question, put it into the CAT paper, pick up a CAT question, put it into the ZAT paper. You'll not know the difference. It's almost the same, right? So I hope you enjoyed that, and I think the time is up. And on the Unacademy live channel, we are scheduled one after the other. So I'll need to vacate the space now. Just to wind up, I would like to talk to you about Unacademy Plus. Unacademy Plus is a brilliant platform for people like you to prepare for CAT, and not just CAT, even other exams. And do check out, the best part of Unacademy Plus is that once you take subscription, you don't need to bother about which teacher, or you don't need to really bother about anything else, because you get access to multiple teachers teaching you their topics. So there'll be courses, like for example, I'm running a ZAT crash course right now. So I'm also on Academy Plus. I do DILR from the basics, and I also do practice courses on quants as well as VRC on Unacademy Plus. And if you do decide to join Unacademy Plus, you can try to use my promo code Arun Sharma, and this promo code will give you a 10% discount on the existing fees of Unacademy Plus. So this is the promo code that will give you that this thing. And preparations for CAT 20 have started in earnest. A course on a practice course on quantitative aptitude from my side is starting in January. A complete course on DILR has also started from my side. And the best part of Unacademy Plus is multiple teachers. You can learn from 4 or 5 teachers. Different teachers might be teaching a different level, so you might want one teacher at a level and then go to the higher teacher. So all those, it puts the remote control in your hand, so to say. Right. So with that, I'll wind up the session. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I was able to answer your FAQs. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Priya, and thank you, Anil, Shubham, Bhupendra, everybody else who attended. I look forward. You want to do some questions on that. So tomorrow, day after, I'm going to have some sessions where we'll be discussing live actual ZAT questions of the past years. I'll be doing a couple of sessions on decision making also here. So keep watching the space. Bye bye for now. Thank you so much. Good night. Have a great day.